Hi everyone, can you hear me now okay? Can everyone hear? If you'd either like to post in the chat, yes, you can hear now. Yes, brilliant. Thanks everyone. Oh, I thought we were going to have no sound. Great, brilliant. It's a bit echoey. Okay, I'll try adjusting my headset a little bit. Hopefully that'll be a bit better. Okay, please everyone can hear us. We'll just wait 1 minute before we get started, but I hope everyone's okay. Busy day teaching. Does anyone want to post in the chat whether you've got sunshine where you are and where you're from? We're based in Newcastle and we've had cloud today. Sunny here in Fleet of Hampshire. Oh, good. Please, someone's having sunshine. Sunderland, cloudy too. So just round the corner. Yeah. Didn't mean to brag. I know. Send some of the sunshine up north for us, please. Okay, well, it's past now, so I'll get started. And I'm pleased everyone can hear us, so I'll get started on the session. So before we do get started, bit of housekeeping. You are in control of your microphone, so if you're not speaking, could you just mute your microphone so that we don't get any background noise? But at any time you want to ask any questions, feel free to unmute your mic. We have the question box as well, so feel free to post questions throughout the session. Make sure that we've got the reactions as well. Raise your hand if you've got a query, or there's a smiley face, or clap if there's anything you want to sort of pop up throughout the session. The session is being recorded and it will be available within this Teams chat at the end of the session. Certificates are available upon request if you need a certificate of proof of CPD for your school, so they can be requested on after the session. And we are using a Jamboard today, so be ready to add sticky notes and text boxes for the activities. This is interactive. You also should have been sent out the workbook from myself, which goes along with the session. And then there'll be the Jamboard link as well, which we're going to post in the chat. And if you've registered for the event, there'll be a follow-up email as well after the session. So welcome everyone to this virtual session for the Cert Prep to Teach for Year 1 for engineering. So before we start, we'll do a quick introduction. So I'm Beth Hudspeth and I'm part of the provider development team, and I'm one of the officers who supports schools across the country for the Cert's onboarding and training in CPD. And I'm also joined here by Graham Lees, who is our lead EQA. Graham, would you like to introduce yourself?
Afternoon all, good to be here. I think I may have spoken to some of you already in my current role, if you're running the current course. So I'm just here to support Beth this afternoon with any queries that you might have. Do feel free to drop queries in the chat. I'll look forward to speaking to you.
Thanks, Graham. So Graham will be supporting me on this webinar, as he said, with the chat function and any questions you may have. And for those of you who've not heard of NCFE before, we are an education charity, award and organisation that specialises in vocational education post-16. This includes our study programmes, T-levels, and our 14 to 16 our Cert technical awards. So it's a pleasure to have you here today. So this webinar will provide a brief overview of the Cert Technical Award in Engineering, covering the qualification structure and assessment. We will explore curriculum planning and formative assessment, where you'll have the opportunity to look at your pupils' knowledge journey and create a roadmap that will help you have a better understanding on how to teach the indicative content, as well as develop some formative assessment activities. We will share a summary of all the resources and support that are available from NCFE to support you and your pupils before giving you the opportunity to create some teaching and learning activities of your own that you can help deliver the content in an active and engaging way. And as a group, you'll learn from each other and share best practice on what you currently use in your classroom. So this will be done through the Jamboards, the chat. So, make sure you're sharing your practice, and there'll also be a chance at the end to ask questions, but do ask throughout. And we are aware that the quality assurance team have recently postponed sessions which were covering how to deliver the VCerts, the Model 5s to be assessed, and the rearranged dates for these have not been shared with us yet, but please be aware that we are not part of this this won't be part of this training. So we're unable to answer any specific questions about assessment regulations, and the rearranged dates will be out before the end of this academic year, before you'll need the information about this assessment in year 2. So this session is very much about prep to teach for year 1, and the year 2 about the NEA. That will be at the end of this academic year, and the date will be released, but we are aware that it has been postponed. So before I begin, we're going to start with an starter activity, and we'd like to do a quick poll. So I'll just launch the poll. Excuse me when I just switch. So I'm just going to launch the poll, and this is on how confident you feel with the VCerts. And this should appear in your chat function. So 1 being not very confident and 10 being very confident. So there is, can everyone see that okay in the chat function?
It's filling up nicely. I think we've got responses from everyone there.
Oh, good.
So we've got a mix between between 3 and 6. So I think partly confident would be the outcome there. It's fair to say.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. So hopefully by the end of this session, we'll get you up to the 7, 8s, and maybe even the 9 to 10s. Thanks, everyone. Oops, I've flicked past. So before we go into more detail about, the VCert qualification in engineering, let's have a look at what you want to know about the qualification. So within your workbook, you have a KWL activity. So what do you already know about the VCerts, and what do you want to learn? And afterwards, what did you learn? So that's to complete afterwards. So using your handbook, if you could also share in the chat, we'll give you a few minutes to put one thing you want to know and one thing that you'd like to learn. I'll give you a couple of minutes to post in the chat what you want to learn and what you already know. I'll just wait for everyone to post in the chat. What do you already know about the VCerts, and what would you like to learn today about the VCerts? So we have a question. I'd like to make sure the qualification will be suitable for my really challenged SEND students. Okay, well, hopefully when we go throughout the session more about the qualification and share the activities, you'll be able to see whether that will suit your learners. So I'll just give you another minute for any more responses. So Matt knows that it's 60-40 and that the teaching resources are available on the NCFE. Great, thanks, Matt. Have you managed to look at the teaching resources yet on the website? Yeah, brilliant. It's great. And then we've also got currently teaching it, so would like to know if there's an alternative way to teach content, as finding it that there is a lot of content to get through. Great, so hopefully by the end of this session we'll have some ideas from each other and from ourselves of, and I know you can only do coursework. I can only do coursework in year 11. What do you mean by you can only do coursework in year 11? So the year 11 is the NEA and the EA.
So you're correct in saying that the assessed coursework or the formally assessed coursework would be in year 11 in the form of the NEA. Learners can of course undertake formative assessment in year 10.
Yeah, great.
If that assists in delivery of content.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, she put sorry NEA. I thought that's what you meant. I just wanted to double check. Great. Yeah, and as we go through the slides, we'll cover the overview of the 2-year as well. Great, thanks everyone. So as I said, this webinar is very much, you know, about you and getting what you want out of the session, what you want to know and what you've learned. So next we're going to start looking at an overview of the qualification. So if you've taught the engineering VCERT before, this will be familiar to you, but you'll notice it's been refreshed. So the guided learning now is 140, and that includes the 120 hours for delivery, the 18 hours for the NEA, and an hour, 30 minutes for the EA. TQT is 154 hours, and this includes homework you might set or independent learning. And as we said before, the NEA, the weighting is 60% and the EA is 40%. And the content is assessed against the EA and the NEA, and it will be sampled across the full breadth of the qualification. And the overall qualification grades are a level 1 pass up to a distinction, and for a level 2 up to a distinction star. Next, we're going to explore some curriculum planning in a bit more detail, and what is your learner journey going to look like and why. So when considering curriculum planning, this quote really stands out and is a great reference when considering curriculum design and teaching and learning sequencing. The delivery of what you need to teach from the qual spec does not need to be, nor was it intended for this, to be delivered linear. Space practice or distributed practice, which Dylan refers to, means space in retrieval and recall of knowledge out over a period of time rather than crammed practice, regular revisiting prior learned material. And it is an important part of an effective planning curriculum, providing an opportunity for pupils to forget and relearn and support the transfer of knowledge to that long-term memory. So we're going to have a look at how we can deliver. So considering the content areas, let's explore a moment a blocked approach versus the interleaving, and how space learning and retrieval can support the delivery of the new model of the VCERT. Block study, which involves studying a topic before moving on to another, may suited the previous VCERT model, which features end-of-unit assessments. However, the information isn't being transferred to long-term memory, which needs to be the primary focus. So with the new model of VCERT, such that students no longer do an end-of-unit assessment, the ability to retain and recall large pieces of information has become even more important, and the science of learning evidence that interleaving is the most effective strategy. And this example on the screen explores how the content can be mapped using blocked approach compared to the interleaving approach. So in the chat, can you let us know which approach you were planning? Were you planning to teach content area one by one, or were you planning to explore the content and make the natural links across content areas? So if you could just post in the chat, were you thinking about one in the blocked, or were you thinking about interleaving? I can see there's some typing. So were you considering doing the block study, or were you considering interleaving? So Matt was thinking about content areas one by one, then practical tasks linked to theory covered to maintain engagement and build NEA skills. Okay, so Matt was thinking about the blocked approach. Was anyone else thinking about the interleaving approach? I'll just give everyone a few minutes. So I've currently taught blocked, but wanted to change this year to interleaving. Only done block, has not had all resources were online at the start of the year. Yeah, so hopefully next year when you've got the full range of resources, you'll be able to do more of it interleaving. And we've also done mini manufacturing this year. Brilliant, great. So we've also got in our existing engineering, we try to mix practical skills with knowledge in a series of practical examples. Interleaving might be an interesting new approach. Great. So interleaving refers to mixing up of subject topics, as we've said, practical, and skill study. Topics are the case for the VCERT, so covering the content areas instead of blocking them together. And this really helps students to make connections and leads to benefits in their transfer of learned skills. So in the context of your curriculum planning and design, mapping the core content knowledge and understanding effectively allows overlap and naturally holistic links alongside carefully considered space practice and well-designed retrieval tasks and testing, and it's an excellent formative assessment opportunity for you as a practitioner, whilst also helping to prepare your students for summative assessment of core exam papers. And we'll come back to formative assessment methods to support your practice testing and retrieval later in the session. But now we're going to have a look at your learner journey and how it's woven into curriculum planning. So we will be aware of the qualification content within your curriculum, and you'll be planning the order of your delivery, but it's also important to remember the whole learner journey, including the knowledge, skills and behaviours that learners need to be successful in their chosen industry area. So we've added some of the areas which we also think is important to include here, but this list is not extensive and would need to be individualised for each of your learner. So things like subject specific, English, maths and digital skills, work and industry skills, communication skills, analytical and evaluation skills, and other skills such as problem solving, adaptability, proactive, objectively, professionalism, and it goes so on the list. So the engineering, there's 9 content areas, and the specification includes indicative content and teaching guidance. And these are the 9 content areas that are covered in the new VCERT model. And here's a visual of the structure of the new V-certs, and this was covered in more depth in part 1 of the Prep to Teach. And if you were unable to attend this, these are available on our YouTube V-cert playlist. But as you can see, the key points for the year for the NEA and the EA. So year 1 is very much about delivering the content. And then in year 2, the NEA brief is released in September, but doesn't necessarily have to be delivered in September. And our recommendation would be January time. So after that summer break, you've still got time to cover some content areas. And then delivering the NEA delivery in that January to April window, which is submitted at the end of April 30th. And then we have the exam, May, June, and the certification. But the year 1, this Prep to Teach, we are focusing on that year 1 delivery. So interleaving the content areas is based on the idea of your learner journey that embeds knowledge and skills throughout sequencing the curriculum. Pupils are required to combine elements of their learning and show accumulated knowledge and understanding across the qualification content. Synoptic assessment enables pupils to evidence their capability to integrate and apply knowledge, understanding and skills gained with the breadth and depth in context. It is therefore essential when planning for teaching throughout delivery that the interdependencies and links build across the content of the qualification and are highlighted and reinforced. So teachers can take a synoptic approach across the qualification, and this will enable pupils to be able to apply theories and concepts from across the qualification specification in context to skills-based situations. Through combining content and developing holistic connections, pupils will be able to demonstrate and evidence their full knowledge and understanding of the subject area of engineering industry. So this slide shows a summary of the NEA tasks for engineering, including the marks that will be awarded for each section. And the key points to note is that when considering the learner journey and sequencing the curriculum, the content areas need to be continually linked to the NEA tasks. And it's also worth considering how your learners also link external assessments too. So let's get our thinking hats on. So we're going to start doing an activity which is going to be on the Jamboard. So for this activity, I'd like you all to think about how you would sequence the content and why. Consider if you need to teach content area in its entirety before moving on. So which area of the indicative content links? Are there common themes? Can you link forward and link back? Can you embed knowledge? Can you embed skills? So on the Jamboard, page 2, and within your workbook on page 3, start to create a learner journey and knowledge roadmap, or review what you may have already been put together for September and considering what has been mentioned. And we'll share this as well on the Jamboard. So Graham, are you able to post the Jamboard link within the chat?
I believe it's in there slightly further up if you scroll up the chat.
Brilliant.
Sorry, guys, I did that a bit prematurely. If you scroll to about 15:35, there's a link to the Jamboard there.
I think we'll have bumped it up the chat with.
Let me just copy it again, and I'll put it down at the bottom there. Hang on. Oh, thanks, Helen. Helen's way ahead of me there.
So can everyone see the screen? I've dragged the Jamboard across. So on page 2, I can see that everyone's joining. We've got a python, squirrel, camel. Within the Jamboard, you have sticky notes here. And on here, you can post that you would maybe do 1, engineering disciplines, but then move on to 2 and 3. So if you could post and then you save, and then that'll go on the activity. So if you haven't used the Jamboard before, the sticky notes at the side, and if you can share whether you are going to interleave, block, how are you going to put the how do you plan to deliver your content areas? Which content areas sit well together? 3 and 6, could link 3 and 6 and 7 together. So yeah, reading engineering drawings with the hand-drawn engineering drawings. So yeah, you can see how that interleaving works with the CAD drawings as well. Is there any other content areas that you feel would link well together? Five and 8 together when manufacturing could get students to create production plans and also drip feed materials. Yeah, great, really good. Content 1, 3, 6 and 8 practical projects linked to 8 and 9. Yeah, great. And also areas like content area 2, the applied science and mathematics, they could be, delivered all, they could and should, delivered all year long, linear. 4 and 5, how materials are handled in workshops. So properties, characteristics and engineering materials mixed, delivered alongside engineering tools and equipment, machines. Great, thanks everyone. Just move the Jamboard out of the way. So lots of ideas of how you can interleave those content areas together. So now we're going to just pause because within your workbook, it's a good opportunity for you to plan, do, review. So within your workbook, you'll have this page and it's what you plan to do already. So what have you already got in place for September? Today, what you're hoping to achieve, and by next week, and then by September. So within your workbook, we'll give just a couple of minutes to think about what you need to do today, what you've already done, what you want to do by next week, and what by September. So it could be today you want to have a look at re-looking at the interleaving. By next week, re-look at what content areas can be delivered alongside each other. And then by September, that'll be a long list. I remember that being ready for September teaching. Lots to get in place. So for activity 1, have you already planned your curriculum? Revisit it, looking at connections. And by September, what would you like to have ready? Okay, great. So now moving on to activity 2. So for this activity, we'd like to think about teaching and learning activities or tasks that can enable you to teach the content in an active way for your learners. So going back to the Jamboard on page 3, using the sticky notes to record your answers for the different content areas. I'll just drag the Jamboard back over. So on slide 3, so active teaching. So what ways could you actively teach the engineering disciplines, the applied science and mathematics and engineering, reading engineering drawings, the properties, characteristics, the engineering tools, hand-drawn engineering, the CAD, production planning, and the applied process skills and techniques. So this is an opportunity for you to share with each other ways that you could teach the content areas in an active teaching way. So that's on slide 3, 5 minutes. It could be things like a visit. What have we got? Make a mini factory using syringes, tubes, Pascal's on links to applied maths. Great. Could link with maths and science department to see if they have any resources. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that one. So you're teaching in the same way. I like that. We think of any other things? Could be classroom discussion. A site visit. Has anyone got anywhere nearby that they can, take their learners to visit? Trips to different types of engineering places near you. Make an interactive workbook with links to YouTube videos showing how specialist tools and materials are used. Not possible to use all tools materials. Yeah, I know it within the spec. There's CNC machines, and no, I don't think there'd be any schools with CNC machines within their classrooms. So visits or YouTube videos. Yeah, find examples of safety warning certificates related to legislation. Brilliant. Is there any more that we can think of? Local development company, Berkshire Homes will do visits for students as part of outreach. That's great. Really good. Because I know it's not always easy to get to take learners on trips. So that's brilliant that local companies are offering that. Really good. Guest speakers, CAD drafts person. Brilliant. Great. Brilliant. So keep adding to this Jamboard. This Jamboard is yours for yours, to use after this session as well. So keep referring back to this. This is very much your tool to share practice. So I hope you found that useful and you'll be taking some things away and ideas to try out in your classroom. So leading on from activity 2, we're now going to share best practice, such as resources and other ideas that can enhance effective practice in and out of the classroom for your pupils. So now using Jamboard page 4, let us know what resources you currently have within your centre and how do you use them. This is an opportunity outside the session to share resources with each other. So if we move on to next Jamboard page. drag this over. So what resources do you have within your school? And ideas as well. And there's some examples already on the Jamboard. So on page 4, so again, we'll just spend about 5 minutes. We're sharing ideas and resources. It could be what resources you have and what resources you use as well. It's just on activity 3. Post-it note games for sorting hazards into high. Oh, I like that one. I used to love doing post-it notes. "2D design is good for CAD drawings such as brilliant and isometric. Good. I've been using Maths and Science department for their resources for content area 2 to ensure they're taught in the same way to avoid confusion. That's really, yeah, that's a really good tool as well. Using, as you said before, using the Maths department, and it also will support the Maths GCSE as well as the VISA engineering. Students create quizzes on Kahoot. Matching games hazard describes and visual images, safety equipment needed. Great. So again, you know, refer back to this Jamboard, add to it after the session. Just move the Jamboard out of the way. So again, think about your, you know, your plan, do, review template. So just we'll just take a couple of minutes thinking about activity 1, 2, and 3. You know, what have you already done? What today would you like to do, and what would you do next week? So it could be that you're taking the suggestion of working with the Maths department, or post-it. I really like the post-it one. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to complete again your plan, do review of the activities that was shared. If there's anything that other centres are doing that you think that's a good idea, and I'd like to do that as well. I'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to revisit their plan, do review, and I'll just get a sip of a drink. And that's within your workbook. Great. So also teaching and learning materials, we'll cover that on our next slide. So there are free classroom packs, including the schemes of work, and these are in digital and editable format, and they're containing ready to go teaching and learning materials within everything you need to know to deliver the VCerts effectively. And there is comprehensive workbooks to complement your schemes of work, and they include independent study tasks, classroom-based activities to recap and assess learning, and these can be used for homework or flipped learning opportunities, whatever you decide. And the workbooks also contain learning roundups, which will be short formative assessments for pupils to assess their knowledge using similar question types, such as the multiple choice questions, short answer questions, and the extended response questions that will be within the EA. So these teaching and learning resources are available to you on the NCFE website. And I think some of you have already accessed them and found them already. So now we're going to look at formative assessment. So recapping back to the quote we shared previously, but explore practice text testing and how this links to formative assessment and preparing your pupils for the EA and the NEA. So in the contents of your curriculum planning and design, mapping the core content, knowledge and understanding effectively allows the overlap and naturally holistic links alongside carefully considered space practice and well-designed retrieval tasks and testing. And it is an excellent formative assessment and opportunity for you as a practitioner, whilst also helping prepare your pupils for summative assessment for the core exams. So research suggested that practice testing at regular intervals can help prepare students for exams and reduce anxiety as they're used to retrieving knowledge on a regular basis. So it is important there is a variety of methods for formative assessment, which is contextualized and takes place at regular basis. And it's also important to have both feedback, focus on past performance, and also feed forward to focus on the development in the future. So formative assessment helps the development of wider skills and knowledge, competencies and confidence, and enhances their employability skills, which links to the learner journey explored earlier, as well as gaining knowledge as developed as students are aware of their own skills and how to develop those. And to support you in preparation for your delivery in Year 10, we're going to spend the next part of the session looking at formative assessment and ways that you can do that. So on the screen now, there's a range of lots of formative assessment methods. So which of these are you already using? So if you'd like to post in the chat any of these that you currently use, and these could be things from online or things within the classroom. I know we've already said the post-its, but it could be debates, discussions. So within the chat, if you'd just like to post what sort of formative assessment examples you were using. We've got Kahoot, discussion debates, topic tests, end of topic tests, we've got Kahoot. Is that Satchel One Quizzes project? Starter activities, recall from previous lesson. Yeah, great, brilliant. Case studies. Great, so there's lots of ways Oh, Satchel is a homework tool. I haven't heard of Satchel. So it's a homework tool that allows you to make self-marking quiz to allow a bit of flip learning or summative after a lesson. Oh, great. Brilliant. I'll have to look at that one. I haven't heard of Satchel. Great. And do the learners find that really quite helpful? Do they take well to that? Using that as a tool. Just waiting while they're typing. They can do. We do have one or two who will not do the pre-learning and will guess the answers, and they get 3 goes at the quiz. Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So that's one that we could put on our plan do review to look at Satchel as a formative assessment tool. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, great, everyone. Thanks. Peer assessment. We've still got them coming in. Peer assessment. Great. Keep posting them in the chat, and then we can add them to our plan do review. So moving now on to feedback. If I said yellow box marking for feedback, does anyone know what I mean? So if you could post in the chat, have you heard of yellow box marking? No? Got a nope? Nope. Great, so I'll talk through what yellow box marking is. So it's a powerful method that can address the majority of the AFL 5 key strategies mentioned earlier in live marking. So live marking puts a greater emphasis on verbal dialogue that is scripted and targeted to help pupils improve their work. So yellow box marketing is marketing, can't get my words muddled up. Marking is more targeted approach to marking that ensures teachers and pupils focus on a specific area of work rather than an entire piece. So it encourages teachers' feedback to be diagnostic and support improvement for the area of work that is clearly marked, focusing on key marking points. The 2020 study found that pupils value verbal feedback over written feedback. As it was stated, pupils who receive verbal feedback receive the feedback to be better in terms of quality use, quantity and timing, and useful compared to pupils who receive written feedback. So this can come from peer, which we had in our peer assessment. So this can come back from peer or self-feedback and makes the feedback instant, immediately actionable, and you get formative feedback as you will see if there are any common errors of content that you need to readdress. And the final idea consider regarding feedback is the idea of repeating content and the intervals between teaching, feedback and activities. And this yellow box marking slide is available, for you to revisit and look at within the PowerPoint that I sent out prior. So we're now going to look at activity 4 and put some theory into practice. So I'm going to share a number of formative assessment tasks that can be used and adapted across the qualification, which shows your pupil the current level of understanding of the content. So I'll talk through each one in detail for the next few slides, and then we'll go and have a look at them on the Jamboard and we can try them out. So what we'd like to do is the final activities work together to discuss and generate ideas across the Jamboard and consider how you can adapt the tasks and what you'll follow, if follow on for the task could be. And these are on the Jamboard from page 5 to 14, but I'll talk you through them and then we'll go and have a look at them. So first of all, we have Walkabout Bingo. So this contains questions from Content Area 1, Engineering Disciplines. So pupils can ask their peers one question each, and then they record the answer and the name, and then they move on. So the first person has to answer and fills out their sheet, shouts bingo. And this task encourages pupils to talk to one another, go and beyond their typical think, pair and share, as they have to engage with different members of the class. And it's quite simple to create, and it's also very adaptable. And these are on Jamboard page 5 and 6, and I've created them for the indicative content and the specification to create questions from the specified content area for you to use after the session, and also consider making an answer sheet as well for the questions. So walkabout bingo is a good way of formative assessment. We also have expand and elaborate. So teachers can provide statements from any of the content areas to ask your learners to come up with some statements. And this one is an example from content area 4 and 9. So having but, because and so allows your pupils to develop the statements in more detail, as well as develop the detail and complexity of it. And these are on Jamboard page 7 and 8. So in the chat, add an example of a because that you think your learners would, use, say, for power tools are better than handheld tools. So in the chat, if you could post a because, why would the statement power tools are better than handheld tools? What would your learners respond to this? So we've got power tools are better than handheld tools as they're quicker, they're more accurate. Less physically demanding. And what's a really good tool using the book because so this really helps you learners with those long answer questions, writing that more in depth, having the book because the so. Great, thanks everyone. So the next activity is the thinking and linking grid. So here's some further activities I'm going to talk through, and these templates again are available on the Jamboard, and we'll have a look at them after I've gone over them. So this one is a thinking and linking grid. So a content area of the section and the indicative content is chosen, and all the keywords terminology associated with it are placed within the spaces in the grid. And this example's from content area 5, and it's engineering tools, equipment and machines. And what your pupils do is they roll a dice, and in the number that is rolled identifies as the first keyword, and then they roll the dice again, and the second time the number identifies a second word. And then in the box, so the learners put the word in each box and then the links between the two. So they make the links within the grid, and then they can verbally or written make the links between the two words that have been selected. And this is a great starter activity or homework activity, and help can create revision, whatever you decide. And these again are on the Jamboard. And the next one is the misconception retrieval. So for this example, I've added some common misconceptions using content area 1 and 4. So your pupils will try and provide a correct or better answer, and throughout their research will attempt to support their answer with evidence. So these are on the Jamboard page 13 and 14, and the misconceptions from the specific content areas. So also consider some examples of correct or better answers. And this again is a great one to use to get your learners to write that more in depth. So if we switch onto the Jamboard, so all these activities, just extend that, are on page 5. So if we just spend about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, adding to the Jamboard. So on the walkabout bingo, a question that you could have for your learners for content area 2 or content area 4. Expand and elaborate questions that you could add for reading engineering drawings. So if you refer to the specification, so for content area 6, and then we've got the thinking and linking. So looking at content area 7, the CAD engineering words that we could add to these boxes. And then the boxes, the 2 words and linking them between. Thinking and linking. Misconception retrieval. So if we just spend 10 minutes on whichever activity you first want to visit that you feel would be helpful. And we'll support your learners and help each other to create resources and questions. We started to put some on the walkabout bingo. Anyone want to add to the thinking and linking for one of the content areas? Has everyone got the specification link from the chat? Oh, you've got some. What are the 5 materials? Great. Some for expand and elaborate engineering drawings should use. So what would the book so be linked to that? Words in the thinking and linking grids. Great. Great, we've got some words in here. So again, these Jamboards, these are your Jamboards for you to use together. So you can add to them after the session to use as a tool, to share, but share best practice.
Lovely, nice reference to standards and title block there and orthographic rejections. Any other thoughts on CAD? Are there any other essential skills, do you think, guys, that you might? Oh yeah, lovely. Okay, so yeah, 2D design. When you're introducing CAD to learners, do you typically find that learners have had any experience of CAD prior to encountering at 14 to 16, or do you find a mix? I'm interested as to how you might introduce the concept of CAD to a learner who hadn't encountered it before.
If we've got any more. So misconception, does anyone want to task the misconception retrieval?
Oh, nice. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, using CAD for using the laser cutter. So nice application. CAD. Okay. Lovely. So yeah, so you're introducing it at Key Stage 3. Perfect. Oh, okay. Tinkercad. Great. Oh, nice. So yeah, again, relating it to tangible outcomes. Oh, great. Oh, superb. Okay. So yeah, the links to 3D printing are really useful. I imagine that engages the learners really well at Key Stage 3 to see the sort of tangible outcomes of CAD. Great. Super. Oh yeah.
You can see they're still typing in the chat.
Oh, super. Lots of nice ideas there. Okay, yeah, engineering should use BSI conventions, yeah. How do you think you'd encourage learners to elaborate on that? The why of drawing conventions. Nice. So the idea of defining aesthetics as a starting point. Useful. Material classifications, again, great. Yeah. Ferrous and non-ferrous metals, super. So lots of nice primary background knowledge for the learners to absorb to support more intricate critical application. Oh,
We've
yeah.
got,
Yeah. So, yeah.
we've got a
Yeah.
because.
Yeah, super. Yeah, so yeah, engineering drawing should do BSI conventions because it allows any person of skill to understand and use them. Yeah, lovely. What about a but? Think of any buts there? How do you think? What do you think learners would say if they were asked for a but there?
So we've got the but. Sketching can be used initially to allow fast and creative ideas to flow.
Excellent. Yeah, nice. What about a so? What might we encourage to think of an outcome of that? What would be the outcome of engineering drawings use BSI conventions? So interesting to differentiate so from because sometimes. Any thoughts?
So wait for the so. We'll have a few more sort of another couple of minutes on the activities, but like I said, these are for you to use as tools together. Like, you know, use the Jamboard after the session. And these are all great tools that you can use with your learners. I like the bingo. I used to love doing bingo when I was teaching, especially in the morning when everyone was a bit sleepy. And if there was a prize involved, it used to always be like a pen. That used to be like the best prize. I just used to love doing a bit of bingo in the morning. So we've got the so. So ideas can be communicated to third-party manufacturing. Great.
Yeah, lovely. And that's a nice differentiation between because and so as well, isn't it?
And then we've got another but. Other countries use different conversions, and we should be collaborative.
Yeah, very good point.
Be moved in it. Great, thanks everyone. So like I said, use this Jamboard together, because part of this prep to teach is to, you know, to support each other as teachers delivering the qualification, and use this Jamboard as a link and create the tools together. So I'm just going to move the Jamboard out the way, but that will stay there for you to use. Oops, I've jumped ahead. So we're now going to look at resources and support. So in this last part of the session, I'm going to talk through resources and support that are available for you and give you further details of information and guidance. And then at the end, if you've got any questions as well, we can answer them at the end. So our NCFE website, within the research page, this is where you'll find all the information about why to choose research, and the 14 to 16 schools brochure that contains the information. about the Key Stage 4 vocational education and how to learn more about the VCERT qualifications. You'll also find the links to each of the subject-specific pages. We have 11 VCERTs, and this contains information such as the specification, sample assessment materials, teaching materials, and we also have our parent and supporter and pupil VCERT information hub within the page. And on both pages, you can use the get in touch function. And this is where you can request more information on the subjects. And this is also the opportunity to tick the marketing communication box to receive updates on our qualification events and the newsletters relevant to you via email, phone, or through our social media channels. So this is all within the VCERT NCFE webpage. And then we have the subject specific pages. So it used to be, those of you who've maybe taught with NCFE before, we used to have the Qual Hub page, but this is now been integrated into the NCFE page. So on here you can search all our qualifications, and this is where you can access the specification, assessment, teaching materials, regulations, course file documents, and much more. And you can use our search our qualifications function by adding your subject area or your qualification code, and you can select VSearch in the feature box. And also ensure you have the correct page by checking the qualification accreditation number or QAM. So make sure you're looking at the most recent model of the VCERTs. There's also the downloadable support materials where you can access the qual spec and the teaching and learning resources along with other important information. And you can also refer to the portal user guide here on the website for further support. So this is how it looks on the engineering page. We also have our VCERT playlist on the YouTube channel, and there's numerous webinars on there, CPD sessions and training events, which you can access on demand. And this playlist, you can also access, other NCFE qualifications information, but this is where you'd find the VCERT information. And then once the provider development team, so once you've registered your pupils and you're approved to deliver this qualification, you'll be contacted by the provider development team, and it's part of your onboarding process. And this service is tailored to the individual needs of your centre to ensure your requirements are met. So the provider development team supports staff to ensure you are prepared to teach the qualification and are clear on the requirements for the delivery and assessment of the qualification. I think there's a few of you on the call that I've done support calls with already. And there is regular CPD sessions throughout the year, especially around those key assessment times to make sure you're on track and you're feeling confident. And you can see what else we offer on the slide. The things that we can offer as a range of support from the provider development team. Other support that's available is our wonderful customer support team who can help support with first line inquiries, registration queries, booking onto the portal. And you can also email the vcerts at ncfe.org.uk with any questions that are related to the VCERT qualification. So we have the email and the number on the slide there. So in the last section is an opportunity for you to reflect on what you'll take away from today's session, and also you can look at the next steps and another opportunity to ask questions you still may have at the end of the session. So as we're coming to the end of the session, it's time to reflect. So there's a few options. So you revisit your plan, do review in your workbook. So what are you planning to do from the activities? Will you use any of them? Will you take them forward? Will you by September? You also have your KWL, so what you wanted to know, what you already know, and what you've learned. So if you could fill that in within your workbook. And then also within the Jamboard, we've got page 8, key takeaways, what you plan to do next, what impact will it have, how will it impact your pupils. So we'll just take a couple of minutes to write in your workbook what you've learned, what you plan to do. And then also there is a form to fill in. So we'd also appreciate if you could complete the short evaluation. And this will help us make future improvements and change the service that we support for you. And there's a QR code, and then there's the link to the forms, which will be posted in the chat. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to think about your plan to review, what you've learned, and then we'll revisit the Jamboard. On the very last slide, which is page 15. So a couple of minutes on your workbook, and then we'll switch over onto the Jamboard. What are your key takeaways? Great. So once you've added to your workbook what you're planning to do, then if we add to the Jamboard, so we've got key takeaways, interleaving, retrieval, change the way I'm teaching from block to interleaving. Great. Got already started delivery, but start again with new group in September. Plan to use interleaving and embedded better quality retrieval. Hopefully better retention of theory of content. I think putting that theory of content into sort of fun activities like the thinking and linking grids helps learners for that depth of knowledge to think in and hopefully stay in that long-term memory. So interleaving and retrieval exercises to ensure depth of knowledge. A more holistic approach. So we've got benefit impact on your learners, help them provide better quality answers, especially in longer form questions. Yeah. think the activity doing the book because so really helps with that longer answer questions, because they, they've got to think of it in that sort of breakdown. Use a range of formative assessment methods. Yeah, there was lots of ways on that slide of, Kahoot, and then classroom discussion, peer assessment, more inclusive and engaging approach. Definitely. More engaged pupils. Definitely. Active teaching. I like the smiley face emoji as well. Help weaker students access materials at their own level. Great. Active assessment. Brilliant. Great, thanks everyone. So again, keep adding to the Jamboard. Use this as a tool for each other. And, refer back to your workbook, thinking about what you're going to do. And again, if you could fill in the survey, that would be brilliant. So we're going to revisit the poll now, because we're coming to the end of the session. So we're now going to see how confident you feel. So I'll just launch the poll. So again, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel now? 10 being extremely confident and 1 being not so confident. Just give everyone a few minutes to fill that in, and hopefully so we've got some 7 to 8. Great. So we had those lower numbers, so we've gone up to 7 and 8. Brilliant.
Virtually a doubling of confidence.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that's really good. Great, thanks everyone. So what we'll do now is I'm going to stop the recording, and you can ask any questions. That can either be, you can unmute your mic and ask myself or Graham, or if you prefer to post in the chat. And if you have any questions after the session, the emails are on the screen, so you can email the provider development team, or you can email myself, as I'm the provider development officer who supports in engineering. So if you do have any further questions, I'll stop the recording. Just stop that now.